Hey, what's up, good people? I'm QC. Welcome to another Talking and Grubbing live stream. And tonight we are here. We are here to recap parts 3 and 4 of The Last Dance, the document 798 Chicago Bulls. How's everybody doing this late night? As you come into the live stream, make sure you hit the like button. Also, if you want to donate to the channel, you can donate via Cash App or PayPal. The Cash App cash tag and the PayPal link is in the chat. Also, you can donate via Super Chat during the live stream as well. You know, what were y'all thoughts on tonight's broadcast of parts 3 and 4? Found out some things that were pretty interesting. Letting everybody know on social media that I'm live right now. Okay, if you got any comments or questions or comments, put them in the chat. Just sharing with everybody on my social media pages that I'm live right now, so they can come on and join. All right, everybody coming into the live stream, make sure you hit the like button. Just had to share with everybody on social media that I'm live right now, so they can come join the live stream. Now, you know, parts 3 and 4 were very interesting tonight. They really delve into more on how about Dennis Rodman, his whole makeup, his whole time there with the Bulls. Now, his life story was definitely interesting. How as soon as he turned 18, his mom just kicked him out of the house. Basically for no apparent reason at all. She said she was just tired of not contributing, but he was just trying to find his way at 18 years old. So that was straight up code. And also, I didn't know Dennis Rodman was homeless for a couple of years before he went off to college. That's unbelievable. I could not believe that she kicked him out like that. So I could definitely see why he was excited once he got to college. Doing more sharing on social media. And also, you know, looking at those clips of Rodman, he was definitely different when very different when he first got into the NBA when he was drafted by the Pistons to how he ended up becoming as we all know him today. He was more quiet, reserved, laid back, and a little bit naive. But after you could tell the change slowly started with him after Detroit once Chuck Daly left, because he's always said in countless interviews that him and Chuck Daly were very close, while during their time together in Detroit. So Dennis Rodman said after that, he just started to rebel. He didn't start doing all the wild stuff like the coloring of the hair, the earrings, the fingernail polish, till he got with Madonna when he was in San Antonio. And I did not know the story about him, just disappearing for that long period of time and having that rifle with him going to the Palace. Now that was interesting. But I don't think the Pistons did Rodman dirty by trading him like that. Like, come on. You don't know what that man could have been going through at that time. He could have gone through a mental health issue. But you gonna trade him and just turn your back on him like that? That was dirty by the Pistons organization to just trade him like that to San Antonio. And that's when he really started to wild out. With the hair coloring and whatnot. Okay, let me grub. I'm about to grub on this Lactaid cookies and cream. Well, some of it. But yeah. And it was also interesting that Jerry Krause did not want Dennis Rodman on the Bulls at first. It was his assistant GM that fought for Dennis Rodman to be on the Bulls. And also, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, all said, hey, bring him on. We got him. Put this down for a little bit. Once Rodman got to Chicago, Michael, Scottie, and Phil embraced Dennis Rodman for who he was. They knew he was a rebel. Some might even say a bad boy. And they knew he was a free spirit, but they knew what he could bring on that defensive end and with that rebounding, because, they definitely had to find a replacement for that after Horace Grant left and went to the Orlando Magic. And also, that's what cost them against the Magic in '95. They didn't have anybody. They didn't have that. The Bulls were missing that toughness, and they didn't have nobody that could go up against Shaq, especially on the boards. So Dennis Rodman was a great help to those Bulls' last 3 championships. Okay, I'm seeing people coming into the stream. Make sure you hit the like button. Also, want to know your comments on both parts of The Last Dance tonight. Put them in the leave comments here in the comment section. Also, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Don't make it your last. Subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell and click all so you don't miss any new videos or live streams from me. Now, back to Rodman. But it seemed like as soon as Rodman got on the Bulls, he just fit right in, And he definitely brought that, the energy, the hustle, the defense, the rebounding right away. And also, And also Rodman definitely was an irritant on every team he went, whether it was the Pistons, Spurs, or the Bulls. As Gary Payton said, in his interview in the documentary, Dennis was the F up person. He just effed up everything, and that was true. That man was a straight up disruptor. And he just annoyed the hell out of a lot of people. I know he definitely gave a lot of great players fits. Now, definitely got to get to the story where Dennis went to, asked Phil Jackson and the Bulls organization, can he get 48 hours to take a vacation? Man, now that's the wildest story I ever heard. And Phil basically gave him 48 hours to take a vacation, but Dennis was all days. That was so funny. Dennis said, I need a vacation. They said, okay, we give you 48 hours. He said, all right. That man was gone for almost 3 days, just kicking it in Vegas, partying, clubbing with Carmen Electra, who he was dating and ultimately ended up marrying. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was young, I had a crush on Carmen Electra when she was doing Baywatch. And that was a funny story she told when, Michael Jordan came to the door, was at the door of the room they were staying in. She hid behind the couch, under the covers. That was too funny. Man. And if Michael hadn't pulled, hadn't came and got this, I think Dennis Rodman probably would have stayed in Vegas for a couple of weeks. But man, that was Dennis Rodman. That was very interesting. And Michael Jordan said it. He said, if you let him take that time off, we are not gonna see him. And they almost didn't see him. And the practice and the story of them, going, being in practice once he came back from his extended vacation. They did the Indian run. And Dennis Rodman, despite the fact he was sitting up partying and drinking, he started running faster than all of them because, as I learned with the Indian trail, the guy who's leading controls the pace. And if I got the name wrong, for all you athletes out there, y'all correct me. But that was just a funny story in his first practice back that despite all that, he ended up leading everybody on the team. And he's running faster than everybody. Man, that's unbelievable. Also, I want to get into the whole Doug Collins era. By around 86, they fired Stan Albert, and they hired Doug Collins. And that was some insightful stuff by Doug Collins and Michael about their relationship during his whole tenure as head coach. Because some people just feel like, just assume that it was all bad between Doug and Mike. But it wasn't. They both were competitive. And also, he definitely, well, they lost my train of thought for a second, excuse me. And he definitely coached Michael very hard. And also, Mike definitely helped him in his first game, as a head coach against the New York Knicks by giving him the water and, tell him that he had the powder on his lips from the gum. Excuse me. But it also was interesting on how how Doug Collins ended up being fired from the Bulls. Now, Jerry Krause had really been studying Tex Winters, the late Tex Winters triangle offense for some time, and he wanted the Bulls to run that type of offense. But Doug Collins wasn't down with that idea. A lot of times his offense basically ran through Michael, and Michael would be the benefit of the score. And but Krause felt that the triangle would be more beneficial to the team and the team scoring. And other guys, stepping up and scoring besides Michael. So that was a big rift between those two for a long time. Well, for a while over that. So Krause decided to get rid of Doug Collins and replace him with Phil Jackson, who was Doug Collins' top assistant at the time. Excuse me. Because everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people for years have speculated that Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson played a huge part in Doug Collins' departure from the Bulls. That's not true. That was more Jerry Krause than anything. Excuse me. And also, Doug Collins knew the potential that Phil Jackson had to be an NBA someday. I don't think he, wanted it to be at the expense of him getting fired. But he definitely knew Phil Jackson's potential. Now, and speaking of Phil Jackson, his start to becoming to coaching was very interesting. As most of y'all know, Phil Jackson played for the New York Knicks. He won 2 NBA championships with them. He was a role player. He wasn't a starter. And then, but it was also interesting in all the wild stuff that Phil Jackson used to do when he was a player. Taking acid and all that stuff. So after Phil retired from playing, Phil started coaching in the CBA for a while. Let me make sure I got which CBA team he coached in correctly. Okay, he started coaching in the CBA, and also he coached in Puerto Rico. Well, no, Puerto Rico's National Superior Basketball. And he also won a championship in the CBA with the Albany Patroons. And also coming to find out, the reason why it took so long for Phil to even get a job in the NBA because he was more sympathetic to players. Well, he was, and also, well, not just players. he was more sympathetic to the counterculture of the NBA. You know, which he excuse me, which he acquired during his playing years. And you know, a lot of owners don't want a coach that's sympathetic. You know, they want all coaches to be, a lot of owners want coaches to be hard nosed and just a badass. But you got, to me, as a coach, you got to have that balance. You got to know when to get on players and when not to get on them. You know, and I think some coaches definitely, you know, lose that arc, excuse me, of sympathy. Like, yeah, you gotta get the best out of your players, but also you gotta be sympathetic to them at the same time. Now, in '87, he got hired as the assistant, you know, to to be on Doug Collins' coaching staff. Like I said, he was the top assistant, and like I just said a few minutes ago, Doug Collins saw the potential that Phil Jackson had as to be a head coach in the NBA. But like I said, I don't think he meant for Phil to be, Phil to replace him. But he definitely saw the potential. And then about 2 years later, now this is when the Bulls had just come off of the NBA Finals, which include them, Jordan hitting the shot over Craig Elo against my Cavs. I'm going to get into that play in a little bit. But I'm talking about Phil right now. So, start of the 89-90 season, the Bulls promoted Phil Jackson to head coach, and the Bulls got to the Eastern Conference Finals again and fell to the Pistons in 7 games. Unfortunately, Scottie Pippen, he suffered the migraine headache in Game 7, so he couldn't play like he wanted to, and they ended up getting blown out in Game 7. But you definitely saw a change in attitude with the Bulls under Phil Jackson. And that just made them hungrier to want them to become, more hungrier to become champions instead of the runners up. So, it was interesting that BJ Armstrong said in his interview that instead of a lot of them taking a vacation, they went into the gym and started working out. Could, be more physically strong, not only physically stronger, but mentally stronger the next time they face Detroit in the playoffs. And it definitely worked the next year because they ended up sweeping them 4 straight. Also, you could tell that, the physical play of the Pistons didn't, especially when Dennis Rodman gave Scottie that cheap shot in the back. In previous playoffs, they would complain to the refs, they would whine, get frustrated. And that was just a sign of mental weakness at the time. But in 91, they ended up getting past all that, going to the NBA Finals, and ultimately beating the Lakers for their first NBA title. Excuse me. Now, as a Cavs fan, I got to talk about The Shot. Now, they interviewed Ron Harper, in part 3, as they were about the first round series between the Bulls and the Cavs in the 89 playoffs. Now, Craig Elo had just went straight to the hole and hit a layup to give the Cavs the lead. In the timeout, and Ron Harper tells the head coach, Lenny Wilkens, that he's guarding Jordan. He kept on telling him he's guarding Jordan because Ron Harper back then was one of the best defenders on Michael Jordan. Matter of fact, Michael Jordan said it himself that the main guy who defended him the hardest was Ron Harper. And he said he was very glad that Ron Harper signed with the Bulls, so he ain't had to play against him anymore. So, Ron Harper tells Lenny Wilkens that he's guarding Jordan, and Lenny Wilkens tells him that he's guarding Craig Ehlo. And I know Ron Harper had to be PO'd over that because he was the best Jordan defender on the team. How do you, and I'm not dogging Lenny Wilkens because he's a Hall of Fame coach, and an NBA champion, but that was a dumb move by Lenny. Not letting Ron Harper guard Jordan in those final seconds on that shot. You definitely don't put Craig Ehlo on him. And this ain't no knock on Craig Ehlo. Craig Ehlo was a pretty solid player. But you don't let Craig Ehlo guard no Michael Jordan. And, Ron Harper just let it go and said, F this bullshit. So, Craig Ehlo guards Jordan and Jordan hits the shot heard around the world. But now, I learned something new about the shot that, that Lenny Wilkens really cost the Cavs that game in that series with that move. It should have been Ron Harper guarding Jordan, not Craig Ehlo. That was a bad move. Because and I'm not saying that if Harper would have got on Jordan, that Jordan wouldn't have hit the shot, but at least the odds would have been better of Jordan not hitting that shot. Because I do understand that sometimes, better offense beats great defense. But if I'm in a winner take all game, I'm gonna put my best player, my best defender on the best player. I'm gonna ride out with my best player. Had to go on. Sorry, I went on a little rant, little Cleveland thing. Had to go on that for a minute. But also, get some more of this ice cream. Also, another thing I learned was the bond that Dennis Rodman and Phil Jackson, had during their time together on the Bulls. Both of them definitely had an affinity for Native American culture. Phil told the story about a certain Native American artifact that Dennis Rodman was familiar with, while visiting one of the, Indian reservations. And, I think Dennis Rodman definitely loved Phil Jackson. Well, had the same love for Phil Jackson a similar love, for Phil Jackson, like he had for Chuck Daly. Because, like Chuck Daly, Phil Jackson let Dennis Rodman be him. He didn't try to handcuff him. He didn't try to restrain him. Even though they didn't really delve into it in the documentary, I think Dennis Rodman felt confined and restrained while he was in San Antonio. I think once he got traded to the Bulls, he felt more free. And also, like I just said, Phil Jackson let Dennis Rodman be himself. He didn't put no strains on him. He didn't try to confine him. He just let Dennis Rodman be him. And he knew that he was going to show up and come to work when it was game time. And he also knew Dennis was still going to bring the defense, the rebounds, that energy, that hustle, that tenacity. So he just let Dennis Rodman just, he left Rodman alone, let him be free, let him be him, because I don't know a lot of teams would let their player go on a 48-hour vacation. I don't. A lot of NBA teams would not allow that at all. But in some ways, I do think that Dennis Rodman was starting to become a little bit unmotivated as well in that 97-98 season, because, while Scottie was, out with his injury, and Jordan leaned on Dennis Rodman. That was the second person he counted on. And Rodman embraced that. He embraced being that that second guy while Scottie was out. But once Scottie came back, you could tell it kind of, really messed up Dennis. And he felt like the third wheel again, instead of, that go-to guy. But you kind of had to expect that, because that was Michael and Scotty's team. They had won 3 straight championships without you. So you definitely would have to expect that. And also, excuse me, it delved into Scotty definitely trying to get traded out of Chicago that season, because he saw the writing on the wall that he wasn't going to win the contract battle with ownership and management. So he basically said, hey, let me get up out of here while I can. And that way I could cash in the next off season. But I guess Scotty decided, Scotty decided to put that to the side, for a little bit, just say, okay, let me finish the rest of the season, let the cards fall where they may. And Scotty did pretty nice in his return back, playing 31 minutes and scoring 15 points. That was a nice return for Scotty. Definitely a nice return. But parts 3 and 4 of this documentary, I definitely learned a lot more about Dennis Rodman. In some ways, I'll admit, when you a kid, ignorance is bliss. I'll admit, I made my jokes about Dennis Rodman back in the day with the wedding dress, with the different color hair and all the earrings and all that. I ain't gonna lie. But now, as I've gotten older, in some ways, I become sympathetic to Dennis Rodman, especially, watching his interviews on how he grew up. In some ways, he had to bring that toughness and tenacity, because his home life was hard. Like I said, his mother, was mistreating him. She kicked him out at an early age. So, Dennis Rodman was going to the school of hard knocks before he went to college. And that's something no kid should ever have to go through. No way, no shape, no way, no how. But I definitely gained more of an understanding and a sympathy for Dennis Rodman. And also, I learned a little bit more about Phil, and also his coaching style. In a lot of ways, his coaching methods were pretty unorthodox. Having, putting in that Native American culture, having guys, meditate and all that. A lot of matter of fact, no coaches do that now, or even back then. And he just didn't want to just tap into the games of his players. He also wanted to tap into their psyche, their personalities. You know, he did the same thing with Shaq and Kobe, you know, once they got on the Lakers. Same with Paul Gasol, Andrew Bynum, and Lamar Odom. So definitely gained some perspective on Dennis Rodman, Phil Jackson, also a little bit more insight on, you know, Scotty's ordeal with management at the time. Well, I'm about to get out of here, y'all. I want to thank y'all for joining me here on this Last Dance recap. Y'all sure to stay tuned next Sunday. Matter of fact, I'm gonna bump up the recap. Instead of it being at 10 after 11, it's gonna be at 11 o'clock on the dot. I'm working on getting another special guest for another recap. So once that's official, definitely will let you know. So once again, I thank y'all for joining me. Also, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Don't make it your last. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell and click all so you don't miss any new videos or upcoming live streams from me. You know, I enjoy doing these recaps for y'all on this live stream. So y'all stay. So next week. So till next week, y'all have a good one. Love y'all to life. QC out.